Hi, and welcome to our 9th annual Care Week, a week of free services from the Center for Relationships. While we take a moment for others to join, we'd like to invite you to let us know where you're from in the chat box. My name is Teresa Morales, and I'm the events coordinator here at the center, as well as the executive assistant to Dr. Vagdevi Meunier. To share a little bit about the Center for Relationships, our mission is to provide relationship education and support to the community through individual and couples therapy, ongoing group support, couples retreats, and professional training. We're excited for you to be joining us today as we discuss the Art and Science of Love Couples Retreats, which is one of my favorite parts of working for the center. So I have some housekeeping notes to please keep a pen and paper somewhere for note keeping. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact us at events@thecenter4, that's the number 4, relationships.com. I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Vagdevi Meunier, and she has with her her husband, Tom Meunier. Dr. Vagdevi Meunier is the founder and executive director of the Center for Relationships and is the advisor to all TCFR doctoral level trainees and therapist team members. She's been a licensed professional psychologist for over 38 years with experience in counseling, education, and clinical consultation. Since 2000, Dr. Meunier holds a clinical assistant professorship at the University of Texas and taught as an adjunct professor at St. Edward's University for over 10 years. Dr. Meunier specializes in relationship therapy, specifically with couples and families. She has an extensive history and passion for multicultural psychology, especially Eastern influences on psychological practice and cross-cultural relationship research. Since 2006, Dr. Meunier has been a master Gottman couples therapist and professional trainer for the Gottman Institute, where she leads the Art and Science of Love couples workshops, locally, nationally, and most recently in Cancun as we launched our first workshop internationally. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce you to Dr. Meunier and her husband, Tom Meunier.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today for the Art and Science of Love info session. And as Teresa already said, my dear husband, Tom, who is not a therapist, usually agrees or capitulates to my pressure to come join me on these things. And I invite him to this because I think it's really helpful for you to hear sort of the official version from me, and then to also hear Tom's experience, because not only did he attend this particular couples retreat with me in Seattle at when the Gottman Institute used to put these on, but he also assists every single time I do one of these retreats. He's there. He helps with the setup, the organization, and then more importantly, the role plays that we do. Because what we try to do is bring you our real selves so that you really get a glimpse of how we apply the Gottman techniques in our own work, in our own relationship, in our own marriage. So let me put the slides up here. So what we're talking about is the Art and Science of Love Couples Retreat that was developed by Drs. John and Julie Gottman. And as a Gottman Master Trainer and an approved couples workshop leader, I have the permission to offer that exact same trademark workshop. So what you're going to get when you attend one of our Art and Science of Love couples retreats is exactly the same curriculum, the same lectures, the same videos, the same everything. The only difference would be you're going to get me and Tom instead of one of the other Gottman trainers. Drs. John and Julie Gottman no longer do the Art and Science of Love workshops in Seattle. They've sort of passed the baton on to other folks who are now doing it. And so I am one of the folks that has been approved to carry this on. If you have heard about John Gottman, you know that he's pretty famous. He's world famous for his research into what makes relationships stay together, what makes them come apart. He studied couples for over 40 years, thousands of couples, right? And just in the very beginning, especially, just observed couples. He brought them into his lab, and there's a video that Teresa is going to put into the handouts section that you'll be able to download that shows you what the Love Lab used to look like. He had this, lab, but it was really a kind of studio apartment that he built in his university department, and it was a very basic one room studio that had a couch and a TV and a dinette, and the dinette set was right next to a window that looked out on a lake, which in Seattle it's not that hard to do. Lots of beautiful lakes there. And couples would come and spend 12 hours, 20 hours, 24 hours. They didn't sleep there overnight, but they would come and spend the whole day. And he would just observe them doing different activities. He would sometimes give them activities. They would sometimes have them take some surveys or tests, or they would measure their physiology. And after, many years of doing this and replicating his observations in 6 different studies, he came up, excuse me, with his model, which is called the Gottman Sound Relationship House model. Okay. And this model is the basis for his book, The 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work. And in this model, I don't know why I'm having difficulty talking this morning. Sorry about that. In this model, what you'll see is that there are 7 levels. So that's the middle of the house, and 2 walls, trust and commitment. These 7 levels can be broken down into 3 dimensions. So bottom 3 levels are considered the friendship dimension. The middle 2 levels are considered the conflict dimension. And the last 2 levels up top are considered the shared meaning dimension. The friendship dimension is what it sounds like. It's about how well do you maintain and develop and improve your friendship with your partner. Building love maps means how well do you know them? Do you have a database in your head for who this person is? Not only what do they take on their pizza, but also what was their childhood like, and where did they grow up, and who are their parents, and what are their siblings like. All of that belongs to the information we carry about our partners. And if we have really good love maps, then we probably have really, really good, deep, complex databases in our heads, right? And that helps us know our partners in a really important way. Sharing fondness and admiration, again, what it sounds like. Do I share? Not only think, but do I let it trickle out of my mouth and say things to my partner like, good job, that was awesome, honey, thank you. More importantly, do I share with my partner all the ways in which I admire them and ways in which I have gratitude for the life that we live? And I'll tell you, I don't know about you, but I grew up in a family where I didn't see that a lot. My parents never did that. Yours did? Not really, right?
No.
Yeah. It was not something we grew up doing or seeing. And so it was really important and difficult for me to learn to make that a habit. I have to think about it. And even today, right? If I'm just walking through the kitchen and I see him there and he's picking up the dishes, he's our master dishwasher. And if I see,
Yay.
yes, right? If I see him doing that, I have to remind myself, take a moment to say thank you. Just because he's done it for the 200th time doesn't mean it's okay to take it for granted, right? So that's sharing fondness and admiration. The third level, turning towards versus away, is a really important level, because once you get to know somebody and once you have some admiration and attraction for them, then you get down to building an intimate relationship. And that intimate relationship happens on a daily basis. It happens through small and large moments. For example, right before this webinar started, I texted him and said, hey, are you going to join me? And he's actually on call at work today, even though it's a Sunday. And he said, okay. And he showed up. That's an aspect of turning towards. I made a bid and he turns toward it, right? And he might come and say, I just have 10 minutes to give you. I can't give you the whole hour. I got to go, right? And that's fine. because turning towards doesn't mean I give up everything that's important to me and show up for my partner at some cost to myself. So when people turn towards each other, they found that in the apartment lab, now remember, they had nothing to do. They were hanging around, reading books and just chilling. When they turn towards each other, 86% of the time. That means if I make 100 bids and 86 of them, he says, yeah, what do you need? Then 6 years later, that couple was likely to be together. On the other hand, if I make 100 bids and I only get a positive response 33% of the time, then 6 years later, we were much more likely not to be together. So this turning towards became a very important signal of the intimacy and connection and health of the relationship, the attachment bond, right? How important we are to each other, how much we give each other our attention. Also turned out that when we were putting deposits, so every time you turn towards your partner, it's like you're putting a deposit in this emotional bank account. If we had a lot of deposits, we also happened to build trust and commitment, because trust is about, will you be there for me? You know, when I need you, when I'm having a bad day, will you take some time? Will you sit down with me? Will you ask me what's going on? Especially if I'm upset with you, will you take the time to listen, to work it out with me so that we clear the air, so that I really feel like I'm important to you? And if I'm upset, that matters to you, right? And will you be there for me is also, will you think about me when I'm not there? Will you think about, will you go and buy yourself a motorbike if you know that I absolutely don't want you to be riding around in a motorbike because I think it's a death machine and I don't want my husband on a death machine, right? Whatever. Then will you just go buy one, or will you think about it? Will you call me and say, hey, I really want to do this and I know this is upsetting to you. Can we talk about it? Those are all the ways in which we build trust in a relationship. This emotional bank account that turning towards also builds commitment. And commitment is about investment. It's about, how much do I show up? How much do I invest of my time, my energy, my money, my social, networks? Like, do I include you when I have a family gathering to go to? Do we travel together? Do we have mutual friends? Do your friend circle know me and my friend circle know you? All of that builds commitment. And you can see how on a day-to-day basis, the little things that we do, like if you're on a phone call with your brother, do you put it on speakerphone so I can eavesdrop? Or do you have a call and then come back and say to me, hey, I just talked to my brother. Let me tell you what's going on in his life, right? That's ways in which we turn towards each other. You can see how that would also build commitment. So turning towards trust and commitment becomes sort of this important part of the sound relationship house. And when those three things are happening in a positive way, we are in positive perspective. That means the weather or the atmosphere of the relationship feels really positive. We feel kindly and gentle towards our partner. So even if they make a mistake, we cut them some slack. We're not as likely to assume the worst or assume a negative motive or intent underneath it. The opposite being negative perspective, where if my partner says, hey, I brought you some flowers, your first thought is, why? What did he break? What's he trying to get some forgiveness for? So if you're in positive perspective, managing conflict is not that difficult. You're more likely to accept your partner's influence. You're more likely to dialogue about problems. You're not likely to avoid them. You're not likely to dismiss them. And you're also more likely to practice self-soothing so that both of you can have calm conversations. And being in positive perspective makes that all much easier, because I feel like I'm having a disagreement with my best friend. On the other hand, if we're in negative perspective, then I feel like I'm living in enemy territory, right? I feel like I'm living with somebody who's my adversary, somebody who's going to, take away something from me. So then if this person needs something, wants something, doesn't like something, all of a sudden we're going to find ourselves in huge conflict. And when we're in that conflict, if there's negative perspective going on, we're going to have a hard time accepting influence, dialoguing. We might get gridlocked. We're going to have a hard time practicing self-soothing. We might escalate. We might get really worked up and intense. So you can see the connection between how friendship sets you up for the positive perspective, and the positive perspective really helps conflict management be and conflict regulation be much more um, doable, much more successful. And then the last two levels are also set up by the bottom five levels, in that if we're in this good space and we're managing conflict and we're showing a lot of appreciation and we're turning towards each other, then we're more likely to want to support our partner's life dreams, and our partner is more likely to want to support ours. And then we're also more likely to create shared meaning. Creating shared meaning means we create a sense of family. We create a sense of togetherness. We do things together. We might even develop our own unique private culture, right? His family used to go cut down a tree. They lived in the Northeast. It wasn't that hard to go find a tree for Christmas and cut it down. And they would decorate it, and they would decorate it because they were not very well off with things like popcorn and what else? What else did your family do?
We had stuff.
You had
we
some.
We had some
Yeah, your mom was really good
Mom
at
was really
crafty and collected a lot of things. I grew up in India, so for me, a Christmas tree, was going to be an artificial plastic tree because that's all we could get, and people would decorate it with lights. And so when we create shared meaning, what we do is take what you grew up with, what I grew up with, and try to make something unique out of it, so that we might create a Christmas tree that has a little bit of a flavor of both of us, right? But shared meaning is also much more than that alone. It's also about how well we move through time and space together. Do we have rituals? Do we wake up together? Do we have a cup of coffee every day? Do we have special things we do on Saturdays and Sundays? These are all part of that shared meaning. So when we have good shared meaning, it sort of feeds the friendship, right? It makes the friendship feel richer, more meaningful, more purposeful. When we have good friendship, we feed the relationship from the bottom up. And so these two things, Gottman sometimes jokes and says it should have been a relationship bagel, not a relationship house. But the house metaphor works here in terms of thinking about the top being sort of the symbolic level, right? Think of the attic where we keep all our memories and our favorite toys or whatever, our Christmas trees, right? So the top is like the symbolic level. How good of a family are we? The middle is like the living room and kitchen where we navigate daily life. We spill milk and we pick up milk and we have argument. And the bottom is like the foundation where we build this sense of, I really like you and I want to spend time with you. Now, in the Art and Science of Love workshop, what you'll get is not only a more in-depth understanding of how the research led to this model and what were some of the things they saw in the couples that made them decide this is important, that is important, and put it together in the way they did. But we're then going to take each one of these levels and teach you a tool, a communication tool, an exercise, an experiential activity that allows you to have a experience of what it's like to build each of these levels in your relationship. So the whole retreat is centered around the model, and we make it come alive for you and your partner. Do you want to say anything to that, Tom, before I move on?
I don't want to say anything. I like listening to this in context because I can kind of like reflect on what are the things we do a good job on, and when recently do I remember this happening in our house, in our sound physical house.
Exactly. And even if he's reflecting on it and saying, man, she never says thank you when she sees me doing dishes, then it's an opportunity for him to say, you know what, you were talking about that and I'd like you to do more of that. Right? It becomes a common language, a common vocabulary. So our next, let me talk about this. The Gottman research wasn't just about observing couples. Once they developed the model and they developed this workshop, they wanted to see, does this workshop actually do what it says it's going to do, which is help people have better relationships. So they have to do some outcome research. And in order to do outcome research, you really have to tease out the different parts. So you have to have one group that only gets day one of the workshop. You got to have one group that only gets day two, one group that gets both days, and then one group that doesn't get the workshop. And then you have to see over a 6-week period, 8-week period. I think they followed couples up to a year, actually. How well are they doing, right? So when they did this, they had a total of 82 couples, and you'll see the link there. I'm going to ask Teresa to put the link in the chat box so you can actually go read this article. And they found that of the couples in the 4 groups, the couples who got both days did better, and the results lasted more than a year. That's when they stopped following them, so we don't know if it lasted even beyond that, but it lasted at least up to a year. Male partners who did not get friendship day didn't show as good improvements in the relationship. That means male partners who got friendship day really appreciated the attention and focus on having fun, love, romance, passion, togetherness. Female partners who did not get conflict day showed less improvements. That means female partners who only got all the fun stuff and all the positive stuff, but didn't get day 2 where they got to talk about conflict management and, have deep discussions about things that we disagree on or things that really bug me. They felt unsatisfied. They didn't feel as satisfied. So the bottom line is they found that couples who took this, it was like getting 3 months of therapy in one weekend. Some people would say 6 months of therapy. I try not to be that, hyperbolic in my prediction, but at least 3 months of therapy, because you get about 12 to 14 hours of instruction, and you get, live instruction. You get to practice it right on the spot. And we have therapists there who come help you if you get stuck. So it's sort of like getting a little mini experiential, right, with assistance. So you get that sort of head start and a jump ahead on your relationship. And then they found that couples really did well for a year, because the Art and Science of Love Couples Retreat gives you a literal physical toolkit that you get to take home. And if you just follow the instructions in the toolkit and you just follow what you're supposed to do on a daily and weekly basis, it helps you maintain the improvements and the understanding that you gain from the workshop. So really good research to show that. Okay, so here's what we got coming on. These are the next 2 Art and Science of Love retreats we have coming up. We are really excited and gearing up to be in Wimberely, Texas, which, if you don't know, is a small hill country town, about an hour outside of Austin, I think.
45 minutes. Teresa knows.
Beautiful. And maybe, Teresa, I don't know if you can come on and talk a little bit about Wimberley, because actually, I think Teresa doesn't live too far from there.
Yeah, definitely. So Wimberley is about a 50-minute drive from central Austin, and it's in the heart of the hill country. It's beautiful. It's quaint. It's just a lovely getaway from the city. And we are offering enhancement packages. So we have a reserved amount of rooms for a local boutique hotel right across from the community center. And we're also doing a yoga and sound bath experience with a yoga instructor named Sonali. She's amazing. She has amazing healing abilities with her sound and yoga practice. And we're also offering love support sessions, which you can sign up for both before, during, or after the retreat. And then we also have a wonderful Deepening Connections deck that the center created that we'll be gifting. And then, what else? Am I missing anything?
No.
I feel like there's like these little things, but yeah, so it'll be great. It's at the community center, which is right near the heart of Wimberley. And if you've been there, you'll know it's very small, and there's a lot of great restaurants nearby, and so it's going to be a wonderful experience.
Yeah, beautiful.
And Dr. V, just to give you a heads up, those videos are uploaded, so if you wanted to share any of them, you can access them.
I will in a minute. What I want to do is invite Tom here to talk a little bit about his experience doing these with me, and maybe going back to the first time you ever went to one of these with me.
Okay. I don't want to take over and talk too much. So,
no, please.
So Teresa, ring a bell or something if I get wordy. Okay. Yeah, I was thinking how interesting the link that Teresa just posted was, and I want to read it. I've heard Vagdevi mention it during her weekend workshops before, and I didn't carry it around in my head long enough to get home and review it. I was thinking that it's really funny how for the most part men have a need from this couple's work, and women have a different need for the most part. And I know that we have friends, we have couples who are the woman is more like me, more analytic and more
Exactly.
don't bring in the frou-frou hippie things, and the man is more like
Right.
feeling, sensing, emoting like you.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting research. And for me, you know, Vagdevi wasn't always a couples therapist. She used to work with children for many years, and then she worked with the university community for many years. And then about 8 or 10 years into our marriage, it started getting tough with little kids and, moving across the country, coming from 2 different cultures, 2 different religions.
Yeah.
2 different lifestyles, and having 2 little kids, and just the pressures of life that everyone has. We had conflict. We're pretty volatile. We're both, Vagdevi's brilliant, and I think I'm brilliant too. And so we're used to getting our own way, and we're used to having our own say. So,
And let me jump in here. Being the therapist that I am, I would keep dragging him to couples therapy. I'd be like, we've got to go to couples therapy. We've got to work on our marriage. And he works in IT. And so for him to take an hour and a half to 2 hours, maybe sometimes even a little more than that, in the middle of the workday and drive across town to sit in a therapist's office and switch his head to, okay, let's work on emotional stuff, and then let me jump in my car and drive back home or drive to my office and, switch my head again and start working on IT stuff, was almost impossible.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
Yeah. But we tried a couple, and, my tendency is to challenge anything that I don't see, a citation needed. I need a citation. And a lot of times I would come out of these therapy sessions saying, you made that up. I don't have it. There's no reason for me to believe you. And eventually we went to Seattle to attend Gottman's workshop. I had seen him on Good Morning America 2020, almost here's the man that can predict divorce with 127% accuracy. He'll tell you if you're going to get divorced before you even meet each other.
It's not 127%. He's exaggerating, but it's up there. It's better than anybody else.
I read, he did the research. He wired people up with heart rate monitors and followed them with cameras, and threw tens of thousands of hours of graduate students at the data, and he actually backed up the data. So it was pretty attractive to me. And, giving it a chance and practicing and trying and coming back again and being a little bit less imperfect each time over some, just doing a little bit better than last time.
It takes work, right? I mean, we have to do this stuff. And we've been married 33 years.
Yeah.
and been together 36 or 37 at this
Yeah.
point, and it doesn't matter. We've been practicing this stuff since the 10th year of our marriage, and we still have to work at it. Every once in a while, he'll say, I think we need X, Y, and Z conversation today. And I'll say, oh, okay. So he now has the vocabulary too.
But yeah, I have fond memories of I struggled to get through the first time doing this. It was hard. It was hard to do the work. And it was hard for me because I don't come from an an emotionally demonstrative family.
But you know what was really amazing was I felt like I got a completely different husband on the weekend retreat, because we were in Seattle. We had taken 3 days off. He had told his boss, I'm not available. I'm going to be doing this thing. So he literally didn't have to, worry about, was he on call, who was calling? And we literally gave each other the gift of our attention for 2 days. And same here, right? He often feels very frustrated that I'm going back to back to back and he doesn't have my attention either. So it was this amazing experience of giving each other 2 days and really just like hanging back and listening to the lectures and then practicing the exercises. And even if the exercises didn't all go really well, it taught us something. It was like, oh, wow, this stuff is hard for us, or this stuff is really fun. Like we did the card games and they looked silly and hokey at first, but we had a blast. And now he's the one who'll remind me. We'll be sitting at dinner. He'll pull up the card games and he'll say, let's do a card, right? And we'll do a card or two. So it really taught us something about doing small things often and being open to learning, so much that now every year we find a couples retreat. Not all Gottman. Sometimes we go to an Imago retreat, an EFT retreat. Doesn't matter. We go to different couples retreats just because that means we can get 3 to 6 months worth of therapy done in one shot, right? And we benefit from it so much. We come out of it feeling so much closer to each other. So we want to invite you to do the same. Is that okay? Can I switch back?
Yeah. No, I want to be cognizant of the time. I'm just, I'm an outsider to the field, but it speaks to me. So I just want to, that's all I want to convey is.
Okay.
So
Great.
That's it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So come join us April 1st and 2nd at the Wimberely Community Center. Like Teresa said, we have rooms already reserved. We've already paid for them at this local boutique hotel. So you don't have to worry about lodging. You can add that on in our enhancement package. And then we have other things as part of that enhancement package that I think will really turn it from going to some kind of seminar to a romantic weekend getaway. And we hope you'll really take advantage of that. And then the other thing that's coming soon, and we're just giving you a sneak peek, is we are actually launching a program at the Center for Relationships on trust recovery. And as part of our launch, we are going to, in the summer of 2023, August 5th and 6th, we're going to be offering an Art and Science of Love Couples Retreat that has a focus on trust recovery. So we're going to invite couples that maybe have experienced some kind of disappointment, rejection, betrayal in their relationships that has really affected the trust between them, to come and learn not just the basic how to improve your relationship, but we're going to add extra things on top of it for the trust recovery portion. So these are the next 2 dates. We're planning another 3rd date in the fall, and we will absolutely make that known as soon as we have the location confirmed. So if you can't make either of these 2 dates, or you don't think the trust recovery one is one for you, please join our mailing list, and then you can get notified every time we have an upcoming workshop. And the other cool thing we have with the Wimberely ASL is an ambassador program. So when you sign up, it'll ask you, do you want to enroll in the ambassador program? If you say yes, it will send you a unique code. And then when you give that code to family and friends and somebody else signs up with your code, you get a bit of money back after the workshop. So you get, I think, $50 back, and they get some money back as well. So beautiful. You see the link that Teresa has just put up on how to register. Just click on that. And I will spend just a couple of minutes talking about these frequently asked questions. How does the retreat differ from couples counseling? So it's really important to say this is not couples therapy, it's psychoeducation. So we're not really addressing your particular issues, and couples therapists aren't going to be sitting with you for 2 days and working with you one on one. You're going to be in a group setting, like in a seminar. Everybody's going to hear the same lectures, and everybody's going to be doing the same exercises in the same order. However, when you are doing your exercises, if you get stuck on an exercise, we have therapists available to help you get unstuck. But they're not really doing therapy there either. They're just helping you have success with the different exercises. What types of couples attend? We get couples from all over. We get couples who are interested in enhancing their relationship, who want to learn some tools, who want to keep their relationship alive, who want to have a romantic weekend that, isn't just about sightseeing and food and alcohol, but really has this educational component attached to it. So we get couples from lots of different places in their lives. We sometimes say we get enhancement couples and repair couples. And generally speaking, it's a 50-50 split. So we usually tend to get some portion of couples that are there because they're there to have fun, and some portion that really need this retreat in order to address in an intensive way some issues that, aren't going well. Who is this retreat good for? It's absolutely good for anybody that appreciates taking a couple of days off and working on their marriage or relationship. It's really good for couples who can do some of these exercises on their own, who are not in crisis. Who would you say this retreat is not good for? I would say that is for anybody. Hang on, I need to take this. Let me close that. That's for anybody that's in distress, anybody that's had a major crisis, maybe has been traumatized by something that has happened recently in their lives or in the relationship. This retreat might not be the best fit for that. But, do call us if you're concerned or if you're not sure. Teresa is our events program director, and what she'll do is she will work with you to figure out, is this a good time? If it's not a good time, how can we support you? Can we bring specific issues? Yes, you sure can. What we do, especially on day 2, is ask you to pick a topic that is particularly important to the two of you. So you get to address your own particular issues. And again, when you're doing the exercises, if you need some assistance, the therapists are there to help. We are not going to be sitting down with you and exploring the specific issues with you like you would get in a one-on-one couples therapy. Now, the exception to that is because we have heard a lot of couples ask for a little extra attention, is we are now offering love support sessions. And we call them love support sessions because we want to distinguish them from couples therapy. We have couples coming from all over, so we can't really be as intensive or as customized in our work with them. We have to spend time getting to know a couple before we can really help them in a meaningful way. So what this is really helping you address any areas of your discussion or relationship that could use a little bit of assistance. So you could sign up for a one-on-one love support session. And think of it more as a coaching session with one of our Gottman trained therapists. Okay, and let me see what we got here. That's our last slide. And so here's how to get in touch with us. There's our phone number. The main email for the Art and Science of Love workshop is events at the Center for Relationships. But you can also email me directly if you have any specific questions. Either Teresa or I will always be happy to get back to you. So let me pause there and say thank you so much for taking time out of your Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday no less, to come join us for this workshop info session. And Tom and I are really grateful for your interest in this. And we hope to see you at one of our future Art and Science of Love couples retreats.
Thank you, Dr. V. That was wonderful and very informative. And we hope to see you there. We hope to see you sign up. And if you have any questions, as Dr. V mentioned, feel free to reach out to us directly and we will get you the answers and we'll help you register if necessary.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Tom.
All right. We'll see you on the
Okay.
side. Bye.
Bye.